everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Guile treatment. Coming to you post Poquoson. Oof, that's rough. PTC. It's a lot of P's, right?
Nobody's gonna go there anyway. It's fine.
Today we have Devon Bernier. He was scheduled before the PTC and is extra welcome now.
Yeah.
And my usual co-host, Chris Smith, who has been trolling Facebook since my win.
Yeah, I've had to. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I kind of wanted to.
Well, wait. Before you go into it, well, how about let Devon introduce himself to people and
of course
give a little bit of background on your UFS.
I just assumed I'm like you guys know who.
Everyone knows who. Everyone knows who Garrett is, but not everyone knows who his butler could be. So
that's true. I mean, I feel like that's not entirely true. A lot of people know me as the butler without even knowing who they are. I'm like, that is me.
Yeah, true.
I've been playing since 2014 competitively. It was like King of Fighters 13-ish when that started coming out. I got on a couple of team assets. Once carried by Garrett and once carried by Piglet.
Yeah.
And now, if I recall, Piglet didn't even have to finish a game in the finals when you guys won, though, right?
Actually, I finished my finals game in 10 minutes, I think.
I got smoked by that deck in top 8. It was rough. I didn't know what to do against it.
That's like one of our favorite back and forth stories. Like 10 minutes into the match, like he's like 4 turns into turn 1. I get up and go, "Good luck, guys. We're up 1." I'm like, "Oh, you're up a game?" And I go, "Oh no, I 2-0'd him. You're good." But they actually finished their finals game like within 10-15 seconds of each other. So we kind of got the 3-0 without really
getting the 3-0. Yeah.
I mean, as far as UFS goes, I love being like a sort of mid-range to late game control player. So I haven't been super hype on the last few sets, but that's kind of where the unkillable Demon King comes into the room here.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I sort of forget sometimes. I mean, we do have like sort of an influx of new players. Would you like to go into that a little bit? Because I think that in a way started back when like the Turbo format was brand new, right? You had a Anakaris deck that you played a lot back then.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say a lot because nobody played Turbo.
I got you.
That's true.
Like
some things don't change, but
I think it was at Worlds 2015. It was the Gemini Man Worlds.
Yeah.
Before him and Skullman got banned, they ran a Turbo format, and I had a couple of troll decks that I was looking to play. I had the Anakaris deck together with Fear of Women. I didn't end up playing that. I ended up playing Reversal Hanya Bishamon because that set was brand new and nobody knew how to work around Hanya yet. So it was like hot unknown tech at the time. So like then I think both decks were pretty good for the time. I ended up getting eliminated, and kind of that was like just a little smudge in history at this point. I think Slam actually ended up playing Anakaris in that event.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know how fair he was playing that deck. He might have even also been doing the Fear of Women for all now. I didn't actually get a chance to get a good look, but I know that I think he got eliminated. Like back then, the rules for Turbo it was like best of 1, 30-minute rounds. If you lost, you went to your loser's bracket. If you lost in the loser's bracket, you were out.
Yeah.
But if you went to time, both players lost.
Yeah.
So if you were in the winner's bracket, both players went to the loser's bracket. Yeah. They're like,
it was messed
do
up.
More better.
It was messed up.
It was weird rules.
Yeah.
And I think Slam actually lost both of his games at timeout with playing Anakaris, which is honestly pretty troll. I love it. Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure like he
just like, well, I'll take you with me.
I'm sure Slam can correct that too and tell the story.
Right.
I've never even thought to ask him the story about that because I'm sure that would be a fun footnote in the history of this deck. But then basically after that, for like 2.5 years, the deck just kind of like, I always assumed it wouldn't work in standard because it's just so absurd, I guess. but also partially because I felt like at the time, Calgary it was really popular to play decks that would scale into late game. So you wouldn't have these hyper aggressive early rushdown decks in Calgary. Everybody was playing like Tanner would always bring some variant on a throw deck that he would play around with. So you had like the constant pressure from the throw decks, and then you had decks that would scale the late game and kill you with a long string of attacks, like 10 turns into the game.
Mm-hmm.
Playing this deck in Edmonton kind of showed me that I was kind of right in assuming that this deck loses to that. So that's kind of why it wasn't really. It was a troll deck, just to troll aggro players. But now that we came into the Bebop meta and aggro is king, and you don't get to play control the way you used to back then.
Yeah.
You can still, and I think this deck proves you can still play control, but it's very different from what control looked like 2 years ago.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But this showed like you can play this Anakaris deck and you mill people out with Fear of Women, and you play maybe like 12 cards related to winning you the game, and then the rest of the cards in the deck just keep you alive.
Yeah.
And that works because people aren't playing scaling, people aren't playing scaling decks that kill you with a long string of attacks late in the game. Like there are decks that can do that, but that's not most people's primary strategy because that strategy gets you killed in the early game.
Yeah,
right.
But so here we are. Here we are today with our Fatality Loop Anakaris deck.
Now, do you think Fatality was a mistake? I know that you said this in Discord, but I want to get it on film. Do you think so?
I do think Fatality was a mistake, but not because of the RFG effect on it.
Yeah.
I think Fatality is a mistake because you cannot interact with the attack.
Yeah.
Or, well, you can, but in very narrow cases.
Yeah, like Princess Perry does, and there's one other thing, right? There's one other thing that can do it?
Oh, I mean, there's almost...
Just Dimension Door do
really
it?
anything that can stop it before the R. Like, you can respond to the R. Like, you can stop the R with something like Good and Evil, other like response 8. But in terms of preventing it, I mean, yeah, you're talking about Princess Perry. I mean, I guess you could race against time if they don't.
Race against time is actually a suggested. I've had people suggest to me as a way to answer this card.
Right, like I mean, obviously, if they have, I mean, you're going to get rid of one of them, whether or not they replace it with something else. Like that's a different story. But like,
well, fun fact, actually, I think Fatality is the only 0 diff attack in the game. Like in UFS history.
Wasn't Flash Lightning a 0?
Yeah, I think so.
There's another 0.
Flash Lightning.
I think the Flash Lightning was a 1.
Was it a 1?
It may have been.
It probably. You may be right on that
card
one.
that was 0
I want to look this up now because I remember looking it up before.
Maybe Flash.
No. Okay. It's just the only one we've had in years and years. Okay. So it's definitely the only one in Jasco history.
Okay. So Flash Lightning was a 1 diff. I gotcha.
And then there was only one in FFG history that was an IV attack called Cross Madness.
Okay.
But then the rest are all like old school cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so the thing is like, obviously, with Race Against Time, I mean, 1 for 1, you'll beat Fatality. It might just, not be quick enough. Other than that, I mean, Fatality can beat Fatality if you're running it on your own.
That's honestly the best answer to this card. It's just Fatality, the Fatality.
Right.
Weirdly enough.
Yep. Do you feel that everyone should be running that card? I'm not like everybody. Like I know, like I'm playing Liu Kang, so Liu Kang can maximize it more than the average guy, other than Anakaris.
That's fair.
I don't know about main board.
Yeah.
I think.
But I gotta say, I played at least. Well, I guess so. Basically, yeah. 2 of the people that I played in tops had 2 in the side.
Okay.
So like. It's an easy sideboard card if like you have the space for it. Yeah. It's like, I mean, if you have like a glaring issue with something else and you're like, look, like Fatality's cool. Like I don't have a ton of use for like momentum that I need like right away. or you have like other things where you think you can deal with like Punch and Judy, or I don't know what else is like super recursive from the discard besides that. Like there's some things that bring back like attacks, but like if you remove one thing, like they can probably get back something else.
I think that if you're 6 hand size, it's really difficult for a lot of characters to mainboard this card.
Yeah.
But definitely, it's so easy to side to. Sideboards are so flexible to begin with. Like, I think there's very few decks where you're going to want to sideboard 8 cards for one matchup.
Yeah.
Or even like 6. Like, you should be fine to be able to sideboard 2 of this in almost any deck out there. If you're 7 hand size, I can see maybe you main deck 1 and side 1.
Yeah.
But it's just, like the best answer to this card is this card.
Yeah.
It's kind of absurd. Even to, you can't even block it with it. Like, you can't block Fatality with Fatality and R because you don't get to play abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's, as far as this card goes, that's the only mistake that I think with this card is that you can't play abilities during.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if you want to make it so you can't cancel the deadlock combo, sure, but like you should be able to play enhances and whatnot during.
I
this
know.
card.
I love opening with it with Liu Kang if I have like a yin and yang in hand, because then they can't stop a yin and yang. Can they?
No,
they can't. Right?
They can't.
They can. Okay, so it's during the attack. My bad.
Yeah.
They can't. They can't stop anything else I need to
once
do.
the enhanced phase starts.
Yeah, that's right.
When they lose all their ability to play stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I know in finals against Anthony, like there were times where I had out Talbane's nunchucks, and I really wanted to like hold it until my turn so I could play a fatality, and then during the fatality pop it so that he couldn't revoke it.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever actually got the opportunity, because most times I was like, man, I really just need those cards right now, and I would just go for it, and he generally had a revoke, so it's like I think I got it once or twice.
That was actually my most common use for nunchucks. Is if I would block with nunchucks, but on my turn, if I had the loop set up, I would definitely just not even pop nunchucks until my own turn, and like I don't care if you're drawing cards on my turn.
Yeah,
right. Like what are you even gonna do with that? So I'll drop nunchucks and I'll go to 9-10 hand size and just not care. Like. I felt like that was a perfectly reasonable use for that card, and definitely if you had to, you could block with nunchucks, drop it, draw 2, block with nunchucks, drop it, and just chain block with nunchucks. But that felt like more of a corner case where using nunchucks on your own fatality on your turn was just absurdly strong.
Yeah,
right. Having all those cards in your hand after turn 4 and 5 was very difficult to punch through for most decks. Because the game state will get to a point with this deck where you don't really care so much about the number of foundations on the table as much as how many cards Anakaris has in his hand.
Okay.
It's not until it kind of ties in with what we sort of discovered with the deadlock mechanic playing this deck a lot. Was deadlock as a mechanic is really punishing when you just hit deadlock, but as you progress further into deadlock, you just care less and less about it.
Yeah.
So usually we found the sweet spot was right around 15, 16 foundations. Deadlock just stopped mattering again. So you have that window where you're at 10 to 15 foundations where you're like, deadlock can actually kill me on a bad day. But once you pass that threshold, it stops becoming really threatening and becomes more about, I have so many cards on the table that just deadlock stops mattering again.
Sure.
And even if your deadlock is recursive attacks or letting you ignore progressive or whatever you want to do with deadlock, you just don't care because you care more about the cards in your hand than the cards on the table. You can pass 7 blocks if you have to, barring maybe Liu Kang.
Maybe not. Yeah, I was gonna say that was the one deadlock that I just got destroyed by. And I don't think I was you know what? I think I might have been pretty over deadlock. I think I might have been up around pushing 20. But yeah, he ended up getting 2 champion of combatants out. And he had I think he had some experience with the matchup. He played because he's up in Rochester. They had like they had a version of it.
Sean O'Brien's been playing it.
Right. So he had talked to Jesse and basically just been like, what do I want to do? And Jesse's advice was basically get out champion the combat. If he goes to deadlock, like wait for that, and then just hit him with like a bunch of Neurophaticas.
Yeah. And
that was the other thing is Neurophatica was rough because it was just like any of my like resets or like some of my good like defensive foundations, like they're gone. Mm-hmm. He's just like, well, I'll give you this random face down card and I'll take that. And
he's probably the first character that actually cares about that combo E in a long time.
Yeah.
I've always been a big advocate for playing Neurophatica because it's a really valuable reversal. That it's basically an attack that you always play on 5.
Yeah.
It's really good. You just don't want a billion of
them. I gotta tell
you want to see one.
When you have 11 cards in your card pool, it's not on a 5.
Nah, it's not.
Well, it's like at Nats I played Negli Psyche teams, but I played like an aggro version of it that just played 4 Neurophatica. Mm-hmm. And you just you drop double Negli on them, you throw 4 cards in their card pool, you play Cowboy Battery. They have 5 and they block, they're at 6, and you just play all your Neurophaticas out on 3 and 4.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, just blast with it.
Yeah, it's nice dropping a Nero as your 4th attack on a 2 and your 5th attack on a 3. It's pretty nice. It's very nice.
Especially when you're because I was playing it with Pulled My Trigger. I had 3 Pulled My Triggers on that deck, and I'm like, I love this deck.
So let me run over like the tournament a little bit, and then we can go a bit more into like some of the specific matchups or cards or whatever.
Yeah, I can do that because I have the list pulled up behind us, so we can just go over the list or whatever whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so Scott and I went down. Like we were pretty excited for this, especially like Rochester and I having a PTC. Like this is easy, and like not to mention like the rest of upstate New York has kind of dried up. In what Poughkeepsie and Amsterdam, stuff like that. So this is like easily like the closest thing that we're going to have all year. And we've been down there a couple times for Premier Store events as well. So like they have some like pretty they have a couple like players that I would say are like good, like really good. And then, but also like they have like a good like local scene where, on any given, like for the Premier Store stuff, I mean, they're pushing like 15 to 20 people for that. And even for this, I think we ended up at 18 or 19. One guy who was like absolutely a regular, was stuck at work, like couldn't get out of it. It was some like manager's meeting or something. And so that, he showed up like later in the day to kind of watch, but like he couldn't be there at the beginning to play. And I think they had someone else who had like, family something. So, we did miss like sort of like the 20 that used to be a cutoff, but thankfully it's not anymore. So that's good. And then also in terms of people, I guess like traveling, I didn't talk to a ton of people to find out, if there were people that were coming from like elsewhere in Virginia or that like, I know someone like considered maybe coming down from Jersey. I remember seeing. But the only ones that I know traveled were like Scott and I from Baltimore. Ryan Field came down from like Rochester, and then Anthony Hall came up from Florida. And so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you have like 18 or 19 people at your PTC, and only 4 of those people came from like a real distance, you're fine.
Yeah, that's a successful PCC as far as
it's like that's not their fault at all. Mm-hmm. Obviously, like the scheduling is a little rough with like Labor Day weekend, like close to the beach.
Yeah.
I was sort of ragging on them. I was like, well, guys, like ask for a better weekend next time, and they were just like, we can't, it was out of our hands, man. I was like,
we're at Jason's mercy.
But I mean, and then also like I know, sort of just I guess also in the bad scheduling department, just being Dragon Con, I know that our standard UFS Nomad traveling companion Thomas Gordon was down there. He's like, man, I've had Dragon Con tickets since like August of last year. And I was like, okay. Okay, man. Whatever. And then obviously a week before UK, people like Kevin and Tim that would probably otherwise have made the trip went, well, I could pretty much spend the same amount of money and just go overseas and play for cardboard. So there's a little bit of like a lot. I was hoping for something like kind of close to us to like finally coax everyone else to come to us, but I don't think it was like a bad turnout. So I ended up playing like the Anakaris deck that we sort of talked about, Fatality Mill. In the first round, I played one of their local guys who's playing like a Mei-Lin. It was, I guess, styled itself as a mill deck, where it would kind of like play some, and then like it could do damage, but then if it got like late enough in the game, it would hit you with like Tester Might and like mill a bunch of cards off your deck, which I think is like something that might work better if you're actually against people that are playing like 60 cards.
Yeah.
When you start playing people that are like 70, 80, like 15 cards just doesn't really matter. Yeah. And then plus like with cycling, that's what makes the huge difference, is if you can actually like remove stuff before they cycle. So that was something like it was never really an issue. It's like she's a 5-hander and like isn't going to be throwing a ton of attacks unless she starts building a ton of foundations. So that was the thing, is I think he went to Deadlock. I had like Deceptive and Fatality Loop going early, and he on his first cycle, like he went to cycle and he had 7 cards in his discard pile, and he was just like, yeah, you got it, like, and he like didn't even want to play game 2. I felt like
this is where the like, toxic comes down, like, right?
Yeah, I was green. Like, I feel pretty terrible. Like, I was like,
I had games like that too, where it's like in Edmonton, I would like my first round was against the Spike 1, and he had no discard pile and like maybe a third, like less than a third of his deck left. He's just like, no, take it to game 2, man. Like, this is absurd.
And I guess that's the thing too, is like, so I had actually like played a version of this deck like a month or 2 ago before Fatality came out. And just because like Devon had been like talking about it so much, he's like, "Hey man, I got this like hilarious mill deck." I played it at a Premier Store event.
Yeah.
So I'd actually played it like in this store, just like in its less polished form, I guess.
I wouldn't even call it less polished. I would say that like this is like the final form of it. Like,
less
like you're gonna mill them and you're gonna RFG their discard pile. Like,
yeah.
And so that was the thing. Is like in that event, I think we talked about it on here, that I basically went like 2-0-3, and
that's why I was trolling you the entire time.
Right. And just because like, when you're relying more on just like making them make checks with like Fear of Women or removing attacks with rhythmic fighting style, it's just, it takes a lot longer. And so this was really like the first real game that I'd like played with the Fatality variant. And I think like the first game took like 26 minutes.
It's just insane.
Like, and he was just like, yeah, I'm good. And so I'm just like standing up, and like everyone else is still playing, and I'm like, yikes. Like, okay. I'm like, I know that this was like a pretty good matchup and obviously like a good draw, but also like this is worrisome.
Because you're before Fatality, you were like what, like 40-minute game ones if you won game 1?
40, you were basically playing game 1, and then game 2, if you won game 1, they had maybe 10 minutes to see if they could turn to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Was how this deck played.
So Fatality basically cut its win speed in half, which is awesome for that deck.
Awesome is definitely a word for that.
It's awesome. No, trust me.
I don't know if the people who have to sit down across from it think it's so awesome.
I've played mill in other card games, and like with the cycling mechanic in UFS, it's obviously really hard. Like Team Elizabeth was my favorite King of Fighters team because they did a lot of milling and removing and stuff, and you couldn't win by mill with them at all. If you did, it was very, very hard. but I think,
Garrett played a lot of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Locally and like in little like smaller events. He never brought her to major, but with when he would play Elizabeth, he would go for the kill if you let him.
Yeah.
But his primary concern is always staying alive.
Yeah.
So the mill mechanic really lets him, like, once you get the game to a point where you can't kill him, it's like he can kill you with damage, but if he can't kill you with damage, he's just going to mill you.
Yeah. So I think
kind of gives it more of an. I would say that it gives it more of an inevitability to a wall deck rather than being like a really viable primary planning.
True.
Right. And I mean, in some ways, like, like I guess I didn't really run into anybody that had like a really good like hard counter to it. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if someone has a good answer, like, you're kind of dead in the water, you know? Like, you don't have much of a plan. I mean, I guess your plan B is literally to block everything with, like, a rhythmic fighting style.
And
your deck's bigger. Like, you play a 75 card deck, your deck's bigger.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. No, I know. But I'm saying, like, especially in Swiss, like, if you lose game one, like, you can't push. You know what I mean? Like, if your opponent is just like, well, I literally know that you can't kill me, so I'll build, like, 2 and pass. You know, if they're, like, not attacking you to let you remove stuff, like, not giving you enhanced steps other than your own fatalities, you know, and especially if they have a way to deal with, like, surveyors, like, you're done. Like, you know, there's nothing that you can really do to press, like, a game 2.
I still maintain. I think the only hard counter for this deck, like the only really hard counter for this deck, I think is Heidi.
Yeah.
Like if you decide to play this in an event and you sit down across from somebody who puts Heidi on the table, I fully advocate you standing up, shaking his hand, saying "Good game," and going to do something, going to have an extended lunch or something.
Yeah.
You're not there's no universe where you win that matchup.
Yeah.
It's just not gonna happen.
Didn't Shane say something about the boss battle that he's gonna bring? No text Heidi.
So I gave him like a hard time because afterwards I realized I was like, wait, like I didn't even get like, you know, offered a boss battle, and I was like, then again, I mean, I think that he did. Like he basically left to get to the airport for his flight about 45 minutes after finals ended. So I was like, he probably was just like, I don't have time for this.
He'll probably take you on at nationals.
But you know, we had talked about it. Yeah. And like we had mentioned that like Heidi is a bad matchup. So yeah, he's like, well, I'll play Heidi deck and we can have a boss battle. I was like, it's all right.
It's all right.
No, that's a waste of time for both of you.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna learn anything from that.
So, round 2, I think I played a Goro, and he was definitely like a newer player. Like. There were a lot of cards, like especially old cards, like he wasn't familiar with at all, and even some of the Mortal Kombat stuff. Like, so I played like a fatality, and he tried to do something, and I had to be like, no, like you can't play any abilities during this, and you know he was reading it, and he's like, oh, that's weird, that's a wild card. So, I mean, he had Goro, he had like Mortal Kombat stuff, but just hadn't seen fatality. So, I mean, that was something where, that was something where it was just kind of like. It maybe could have been like a more difficult matchup, like if he'd been a bit more familiar with some of the stuff. But ultimately, like, you know, my first priority was removing anything that had like a bunch of stun. Well, the first priority was removing Shokan Grab, because I didn't have a rhythmic, and I was just like, I really don't want to deal with a bunch of like 15. 20 damage throws, like that's not on the menu. Like even if there was one Shokan Grab in there, like that was gone. That was like priority number 1. And then after that was like missile launcher, and then Shokan like stamp, because that's like, I mean that's slow, but it's still like stun 3. So if he gets like, you know, 4 attacks, they're all coming in for a bunch. And I mean, even that, I mean, with him making every attack, you know, milling like 4 more to get damage and stuff, like that kind of accelerates your targets. You know, there's not a lot of times where you'll have the fatality against him and you'll be like, well, there's only like 2 attacks in his discard pile. Like there's a lot of things to remove. And I think he went to cycle and basically realized that he had like 1 or 2 attacks like left in his deck. So we went to game 2 And I don't know if I won game 2 or if it just ended up going to time. But that was another one where it was like there was never really like
in doubt
a challenge. Yeah.
I don't think you can compete with this deck with a low hand size. In all honesty, like
it's pretty
very
tough.
difficult.
Do you think with like a 7 or a 6, you just build and then you have to just scoop? You have to scale your hand to like a late turn to where you can just dump 7 attacks.
I mean, I think ideally you want a 6 or 7 probably, and basically what you need to do is you need to play a lot of attacks. Like you basically you want to be able to play like 6 or 7 attacks, and you want it to like basically you want it to work in a way where you can kill them with base damage, ideally, or be in a situation where like if you have good foundation hate, like you might be okay. Like if you can seal stuff or flip stuff, because like that thing is even if you have something you can make really big, like if they have a surveyor left, like you can be like, okay, well I'm gonna like do this, and like unless it's one big thing and surveyor's already committed, because like Anakaris is just gonna be like, well I'm gonna ready like this defensive piece.
You mean survivalist?
Yeah,
that's what I meant. Yeah,
it's fine.
I do that all the time.
No,
I know what you meant.
Survivalist.
I know what you meant.
But yeah, like if you pump something, and Anakaris readies, like he's gonna ready whatever that like really good defense piece is, and then you're kind of stuck because like unless you have a way to like tap it again, or that was all you needed and you're done, like there's not a lot to do. I mean, so that was one thing against Field.
Yeah.
I mean, he finally used like the Champion of Combat for like plus 11/11 or plus 12/12 or like something huge.
Yeah.
And I did have like a Dust in the Wind, but I think I'd already like used it, and so I had like basically readying Anakaris, like it kind of didn't matter. Like it's like right. And even then it was going to be tough because it's like I can make it 0 speed mid, but my progressive was still going to be 11. Like I think speed would have been the best because it would basically have knocked out because it's +1/+1 for each card in my pool. If I could have Dust in the Winded it, it would have effectively taken it to printed speed, and I probably could have blocked it. So that was something where I think it was like a bit of it was on my part. Like I should have just left the Dusts up for longer. Although, he probably could have just comboed them in instead or something. So, it's just a weird situation. Like, you need to be able to get through, and you basically want him to ready as little as possible. I mean, I guess if you're a 7-hander, like, it might not even be the end of the world to just bang Anakaris so he can't.
Yeah.
He isn't just, like, re-readying everything.
It's, I used to joke about that all the time. Like, when we were originally testing this deck and people would bang Anakaris, I would just laugh. Like, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, my character barely does anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But having more matchup experience, that's not always the wrong choice. But it's not always the right choice.
If you're doing that, like, I guess it depends. I mean, obviously, if there's one good piece on the board, you can just seal that instead.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's like 2 or 3 things that you're worried about, and you're basically convinced that this is going to be the turn that you're going to win, like I mean, it's worth it, especially if you're going to be doing like a lot of pumping. Like you don't want him to be like filtering his hand and readying foundations and gaining life, because he'll do. I mean, there were times where I'd like have something, I'd be like, I'll do this. Like, oh, you already readied? I'm like, okay, then I'll gain 1. Okay, then I'll just draw a card and filter my hand. Like
I've definitely had games where almost every attack I would get to use all 3 abilities on Anakaris and still commit him to block the attack.
That is insane.
Like
it's just
like it's hilarious.
Like I made a post on one of the things. I think it was Rob's winning picture, and someone said something, and I'm like, well, maybe if people had actual offenses that aren't revolved around blah, 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 shitting out damage and speed.
But that, I mean,
like,
but you,
sure,
the thing
that's
is,
the
like, you
scaling
can say
stuff.
that, but like, right,
exactly.
But if your deck like doesn't just like throw out like a bunch of damage speed, like there's a lot of games that you won't win. Like you need to have those things, but you need it in a way that it's just, I guess it's like, it's such a different deck that it's weird to sort of like prepare for it, I guess.
Yeah.
We should definitely take some time and talk about like decks that are actually good against this.
Yeah,
like so that everyone's not like calling for the ban hammer right now.
Well, they were calling for the ban hammer like 2 minutes after the PTC.
Of decks that I think are pretty good against this. In round 3, I guess that was right before lunch. We might have played through lunch. We might have had sort of like a late start. Everyone got their food, and then we sort of went. I'm lying. We definitely had lunch. I think it was just half an hour though. So in round 3, I played Will Howard, who is one of the locals that's sponsored by Legendary Wolf. I don't know how much he's traveled. I know he went to the Omaha PTC, and he either bubbled or got diversified with Vega. And he's definitely been to a couple other things. That's the thing. I don't know how much of sort of like an impact he's made, like on a more, like on sort of a national scale. But he, I believe, has won both of the Premier Store events that I've been to. And I remember playing him last year, and he was playing Vega then. I think he might have been on Death. He was using like Crowbite or something. And it was actually...
I love that card.
So the Vega that he played then was honestly like the deck that kind of got my wheels turning to want to play the Vega that I played in Rockford last year. There were things about it I liked, but there were other things that like I was like, I feel like you could. So I think that Vega deck was using Vega's R and sort of abilities more about landing attacks, and I was like, that's fine, but there's this whole other aspect of like putting pressure on their build that he wasn't doing, and it's a little tougher now. I mean, you can still self-destruct and start over if you want to. I know that
I've definitely played that deck locally again, like the last couple of weeks. It's not nearly as potent as it used to be back.
I think he still does have a self-destruct on the side, which is fine because his attack lineup now, I mean, he's running a bunch of 1-checks, which I think is just kind of like an evil thing to do right now. Like, you have such good spam. He's running like
there's 3 good evil 1-checks
right now. He's running like the Trusted Assassin and whatever the other one is, that like the Molina one that gains life with like the 6-check.
Uniting Rebels.
And I think he is running the Vicious one as well. I know
if he's running 1-checks, I think he should.
Either he played it or like someone else played it, and he was like, by the way, like, thanks for playing this in like that Iceman deck that you came down with, because everybody's running it, because I had recommended it to their like Cassie player just to say, like, if you play a Not Over Yet on turn 1 and you play some foundations and finish with this, you get to like, you basically get 2 opportunities to make your check, because you see what it is if you want to play it like your power flip. And if it's not a 5, just discard it and cross your fingers, because maybe the next one's a 5.
Yeah, Fallen Angels,
Yeah, Fallen Angels. Like, that card's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a bunch of, like, bad checks on turn 1, because it's like you can play it second and basically almost guarantee that you're going to get at least 1 more foundation.
Yep.
So, yeah, he was running Coffee Samba and Princess Perry. And then on top of that, it was just like From Hell, Glaive Toss, and some other stuff. I don't remember. But
Steel Res, I would imagine.
I don't remember. I know that there were some things he wanted to change, like after the weekend, like attack wise. I think he might have been running the Saw Blade Strike or whatever that gets damage, and then if it goes through momentum, it's more life gain. But I think that was one he was talking about, like taking out. I guess, probably underperformed. But, whatever the Sub-Zero one is, or not Sub-Zero, Scorpion, where when you block with it, they burn, or if they block your stuff, they burn.
Flame Aura.
Flame Aura,
yeah. I mean, that card's fucked up.
I don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty good.
I mean, no, but it's a good card. So I guess, he didn't have, really any experience with it, and I don't quite remember how our first game went. I know that I ended up winning, but the big thing was, he would just kind of like race to desperation on his own, and then all of his princess parries would be online, and like that's another card that basically like 1-for-1 will beat Fatality, and it basically beats it until I cycle. Because I don't really have a way to get it out of my discard pile, so it's like if I check like 1 or 2, then all he has to do is basically like sit on a princess parry. He can basically do whatever he wants and sit on a princess parry until you play a Fatality, and then he just discards it, and then you have to like wait until the next one. So like he basically can just continue to discard your princess parries or discard your fatalities as long as he has princess parries. So you'll get a response with it, but then it'll be gone. So it makes it tougher to like loop.
You almost want to just block something with it and hit princess parry. Probably.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, he's generally. I mean, princess parry was typically like the first target if there were ones in there. But if he's holding them, like, you just kind of have to wait until you know. Yeah. And then his other sort of like regret, if you will, was that he, before the event, had been running some space lands in his sideboard and had, I guess, like taken them out for, I don't know, like something. And that's another card where if he had been able to like bring those in after siding, like that's the thing. Like that's what card where it's like if he builds that, like I don't really have any foundation answers. I mean, I guess you could bang it for a turn, but that's not worth it.
Do you not play? You don't play spiders in? There's no spiders in the deck.
No, I thought about it. I thought about running like 1 or 2, but ultimately, like, I just didn't think it was worth it. I thought like basically you're never going to want to build it, so then you're just kind of have like kind of a dead card, and then once you play it once, like, how are you going to get? You now have like a blank foundation that isn't really doing much for you.
Yeah, you like want to blow it up with Haunted by Loss or Kansuki Gojo or something.
So, our games like were like somewhat closer, just because he did have like some game against it, and obviously just stuff like From Hell, and he can make all his stuff so cheap that it's easy. Like that's the thing. It's like for like that kind of deck, like it's pretty easy to build out like a pretty nasty attack turn, and then something like Glaive Throw, it's like if you have 4 or 5 cards in your hand and he picks the right thing, I mean, you're going to easily burn for 10. Like 6 or 8, because I mean, he's never going to call attack unless maybe if he saw you pick up like fatalities or something. Let's see, but right, I guess like in Swiss, like the first game took a while, and then like the second game went to time. So that was, I guess, like the first close game that I'd had. And then afterwards I played, Ryan Field with Liu Kang. And I guess I touched on that a bit, that he basically got out 2 of the combatant. And pretty much the only thing he was not what I would have expected from a Liu Kang deck. I mean, I guess obviously the list will be out soon. Yeah, and you guys can check it out. But he wasn't running he wasn't running I think Bicycle Kick or even Windmill Punch. And pretty much everything I've seen with Liu Kang is, talking about like, oh well, like Windmill Punch and like multiple 3, and you get all these like enhances for him, and like it's small but it like has a bunch of damage. Like wasn't running that. I guess was probably running like the 1/6, but just didn't bother using it because he's like, I mean, he knew like there's no reason for me to like ready his character for like +1 damage. Yeah.
Ryan Fields is actually he's a really good player.
Yeah, I mean he's another
been around the block for a while.
Well, the one thing about Windmill Punch that kind of worked in his favor is it gives all printed 3 damage +1 attack, so you would get a free ready out of that. Static. Yeah. But
I mean, you would only be 1, which is nice, because like obviously it would pump all the multiples at the same time. Sure. But right, like it's still. I mean, he was running. I'm blanking on the name of it now. Cowboy Battery. He was running like the Fireball, I think, because that's like extra sort of clog, and it helps you like stack your check if you check something good for it. And I'm sorry. So that's the thing, is if you mill with Liu Kang, obviously you get to pick the order that everything goes in. Yep. So like when you use his E for on Liu Kang's Fireball, you basically just pick whichever card it is you want to stack.
Yep.
So you just stack some like 5 or 6 check, so that your next attack that you play is like easily passed.
Yeah.
And other than that, I mean, yeah, when he killed me, I think he just went like Cowboy Battery, some combo with like a yin and yang, and then like had 2 of the Champion of Combat out, and I had gone to Deadlock. And yeah, I mean, he did that, something else, and then like 2 Nero Faticas, and
that's pretty
that was
rough.
all she wrote.
Yeah.
I think so. I had some stuff on the side. I had the Krieger to Seize, but didn't bother to bring him in because I was like, there's 20 minutes left. Like we said, it's like there's 20 minutes left. Like I'm not going to win a game 2, and like the best I can do is draw. It's like I'm undefeated now. Like even at 3-2, I can probably get in. Like if something terrible happens next round, so it just makes sense for me to hold on to these. And if I see him in tops, I'll have like a little bit of an edge that he doesn't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And so like last round, I played. What was his name? He topped. He was playing the Fey deck. Andre. So he's one of the locals. I think they have 2 stores, and he plays more frequently, I think, at the other store. It's called like Jerseys or something. And so a couple of them came down, and his Fey deck was like pretty interesting. I mean, it was a Graven variant, but it wasn't. There were some, I guess, choices in it that I hadn't seen in other decks. He ran a lot of whatever the Fey card is, where if you have more foundations, he just like selects one to put in your momentum.
Oh yeah. Is it Red Tail Gunfire? It's not missiles.
Maybe.
It's the missiles is a good one.
You know what it was? Gunfire.
Red Tail missiles. I think.
No, I think it is Gunfire because at one point I would like with Fatality. I said like I think I called like Swordfish Gunfire, and he's like Swordfish. I was like, no, the Fey one that's like grabbing all my foundations in my momentum. I'm like, that's the one I want. So. That was a little bit of a like, it's like, well, I know what card I wanted. I just said the wrong one. I would have gotten DQ'd on the deck list. So, it's like, I meant Red Tail Gunfire, but I said Swordfish Gunfire. Like, what happens? So, yeah, I mean, that was something where, I think I got some good Fatality stuff going, and he just didn't quite have like answers for it. And then, we went to time. I guess top 8 was, there was like a Liu Kang that got diversified. And then I guess like the weird one was like Les. So like Les is another, of the Legendary Wolf guys who, is like a local, and I think he won, and they did like a deck check, and he had just been like sloppy on his deck list, so that he got DQ'd, and so then they had his opponent. They're like, okay, well, like I guess we'll just give him the win because you got DQ'd. So then they deck checked him, and he had a card that was like wrong too, where he had like had it as like a 4X and was only running 2, or was running it at 4 and like listed as 2, or like something like that. So then he got DQ'd. So they basically just took a draw. And then, like, the Sniper Joe got in. But that was a mess. I was mostly, like, unaware of too much of that because I was still playing, but I just heard, like, DQs, and it's just like, oh, man. So I think those are, like, the first hits that we've gotten this year, which I guess that's good that, like, it's reduced. But, man, come on, guys. Like, just check it one more time. Like, we thought they might get rid of this, and they haven't. And I guess at a certain point, like, it's really not on them. Like, it still sucks, but it's also just like, let's get your list right. Like, I don't know. So, so then for tops, I ended up playing the Fey again, and I guess he had some interesting stuff. He had a bunch of good and evils, so he could cancel Fatality R's because he always had momentum because he was Fey. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot more about me, because I guess I don't have an answer for momentum, so it's not like I could like get rid of his momentum. I mean, he had like Bebop Blues and Good and Evil, so that was the other thing is he could pretty much always cancel or revoke. So I couldn't rely on that too much. So it was interesting. I think he got a pretty good turn where he had like an NP, whatever the distraction one. It's like a multiple 3 deadlock. He got me like
PYUU, I think.
Yeah, he got me like pretty low, but like it ended up not being enough just through like some of the resets and like defensive pieces, and like I was finally able to get like most of the attacks. And then game 2, so he sides in his fatalities, and I had like a really weird opening hand where I had like 2 fatalities and like some other stuff, but I was going second, and I was sort of like, well, I'm up a game, so like that's good. And I was like, if I like mulligan this, like I'm down to like 2 fatalities in the deck, and like I can't remember what the other stuff was. Like I think basically what I was like, all right, I'm gonna review one, and I can like play the other one, and basically like get an extra review with my character. So like I just did that. So and I ended up like okay, I think I got like a 3 build and like a nunchucks or something to block with. So like it ended up being like kind of fine. And then like a couple turns later, I'd like checked a few fatalities, or maybe he made me discard momentum with like Victory Howl, and I checked another one, and he plays a fatality and removes 3 of my fatalities from the game, and I'm just like, well, all right, guess this is something that is happening now.
Guess we're doing it the hard way.
Right.
We're going the classic direction now.
Right. Yeah. So like the one, I guess, sort of good thing is I did have like 1 or 2 of rhythmic fighting style out, and I did have like surveyors. So like even when he was able to like stick stuff in my momentum, I could just get it back out with surveyor and replay it. But yeah, the biggest issue with that honestly was that the red tail gunfire is like a low, and I don't have like a ton of low blocks. So removing them with rhythmic was tough. Like I would have to pop a whatever that's called. Rescue mission to make them mid to block them, or like eventually like I would get to something and I would just hold a low block for that card if he like was able to play it again. And I guess it was like closer. But I did finally get to like I got that last fatality I think and got like a couple cards, and just from blocking, and I think he finally went to deadlock, so I was able to remove a bunch of non-attack cards with deceitful ways or deceitful whatever.
Manipulative and deceitful.
Yeah, and so we basically finished. I blocked like the last attack that like removes, and he's just like, yeah, I don't think I really have anything left, and I'm at like 15. I've been at 15 for probably like 3 or 4 turns, and definitely in deadlock. And he just shows me like the 2 fatalities he's been like holding in his hand the whole time. And like that thing is like literally all he had to do was like 3 damage to me, and he would have just like fatality'd me. It would have been awesome. But he just like couldn't get that like last damage in. So I was like, well, I guess I'm pretty happy that I didn't like just go, I can take like, yeah. I can just like reduce this down to 3 with like portal barrier, like no big deal. But man, that would have been sick. But
that's the dream play too. Yeah, right. So even with this deck, you're like, please match me into Scorpion or Vicious. Like I want this.
Yeah.
I mean, that was I guess like.
You could have had it against the Vega too, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Like if he hadn't had the parries for sure, but like I definitely considered it. But he like that was the thing. Is for him it was always like you can play 1, but like you need 2 and me to have like no parries for it to happen. And like it's just not gonna happen.
That's a dream with Liu Kang where I get someone down and then I just like, oh look, I sculpt 2 of them and they're in deadlock. Not that anyone usually goes to deadlock against Liu Kang because Liu Kang just kills people. And it's just like, yeah, that's a dream with Liu Kang I want to do.
There definitely saw a lot of people that just like would not go above 10. And there were a couple people that I played that had like deadlock effects that made me want to like stay at 10. Yeah. Just because like basically the 2 big ones were, I guess like the Champion of Combat, and then like I guess Face of a Monster, because Deadlock form, like you discard a card, like that's pretty, like you don't even have to play an attack, you know, like you can just sort of go like, well, just pitch something, and I know at one point like the Vega guy had 3 of them out, and I think this was in our tops match, like the first game. So he had 3 Face of a Monsters out, and I know he's running like Coffee Samba, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like I can, you know, I was like, I'm at 10 foundations. I got like 6 cards in my hand. So I was basically like either like I would play like an attack just to like get it out of my hand, like because you know I had to play cards, or I'd like play an asset or something. Because the thing is because it's Deadlock, it's not even like I can play like Manipulative, because that's an R where I can destroy it when they play an attack. I guess I would like if I had a the Immortal Knowledge, like you could do that because you can like blow it up after the review step to get back down to 10. But yeah, I was basically like, I can build like 1 or 2 foundations, and then he's just gonna be able to like form 3 cards out of my hand, and like then I'm basically down to like 2 cards, and like he's got like revokes and stuff, and it's like I don't, you know, if I didn't have like a Templar or something, like I'm gonna die. You know, it's like he'll just play like, you know, 3 from Hells, and I'll go, that was a game. Or if I go, okay, I guess I'm just gonna have like 6 cards in hand, and he plays like Coffee Samba.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't even have to make me draw anything. He'll just be like, yeah, I'll just get like stun 6, like multiple 6, and then just blow me out that way. So yeah, I know there was
fun story about that card, because when we were playtesting Toys, Kevin, he's got a Melina deck that plays that card, and like neither of us had really read the card that closely, and so you know I went to Deadlock against 6. You know, I don't care. I'm just gonna go to Deadlock. That's what we do. And and he goes Face of a Monster. It just says form you discard a card in Deadlock, and I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, so I guess I just make you discard your hand with this, and I looked at it, and I'm like, huh. and then I'm just like, well, scoop it up because you know I'm dead. And then we looked at the card again. He's like, oh, all these abilities are once per turn.
yeah,
and we're like, yeah, our bad. So significantly worse than we thought it was at the time. Still pretty good.
That's actually a really good card. I kind of had like a bias against it just because like I hate the fact that it has 3 abilities that are all playable once per turn. Like it's just like, why? It's so much to keep track of.
Yeah.
But that Desperation E is so good too, of just like changing the zone of something, because I think it's your attack or their attack. So it's like, I mean, I really like playing Agile Warrior, and I mean that's a commit. So like unless you have a way to ready it, that's once per turn. Yeah. And so like, Face of a Monster does that for free. Yeah. You know, like I mean, she has to almost like you have to be in Desperation, but probably going to be in Desperation at some point during the game unless you're winning. So that's okay. Like it definitely helps you live longer, and obviously like when you're attacking, you know, you can just make your stuff low. You're like, oh, this is a pretty good attack. It'd be an even better attack if it was low, which it now is. I mean, like low from Hells, or I would like use a rescue mission, and it'd be like, okay, well, it's still gonna be 1 speed, but it's not gonna be mid anymore. It's like, all right, well, I guess I'll partial it.
It's what we do.
Yeah.
We got the life game. Bring on the partial bloods.
So, actually, so I played him again in Tops, and so that was part of it. Is like anything with this, like you're gonna get some free wins, especially in Swiss, because nobody's gonna know what the hell you're doing. And
they'll like realize it too late, and they're like, well, I'm already deadlocked, and I've been playing like an idiot. So
he had like I guess like a little bit of a better strategy, just in terms of like how he was going to attack, like you know what he was going to like prioritize.
He had all night to think about this.
Yes,
I guess because top 4 was the next day.
Yeah.
So basically, in game 1, like he got, I think it was basically like turn 2 or 3. He played like a Coffee Samba, that I removed with Rhythmic, but obviously he made me draw a bunch of cards and then tried to stun, and I revoked it because I was I only had 4 or 5 foundations. So I revoked that. He plays another one, and I think at that point I already have 4 or 5 cards in hand or whatever. So I'm well. So he plays the E to give it stun and multiple, and I don't have any more revokes. So I go, well, guess I'm just gonna pop this nunchucks and hope I top deck a revoke, because it doesn't matter at this point. I'm either gonna get stunned out or I'm gonna draw a revoke. So I do that and draw 2 revokes. I'm
yeah.
It's pretty solid. So I revoke the stun.
10 out of 10 play.
Yeah, I revoke the stun, and then he goes, all right, well, I guess we'll both draw 2. So now we've both drawn an additional 6 cards from the 2 coffee sambas and the nunchucks. And I think maybe on that draw, I drew the 4th revoke. So he, that's the thing is, we now have I probably have 10 or 11 cards in hand. He has 12 or 13. It's something just
it's absurd.
Stupid. So then he plays 2 glaive throws and tries to burn me, for I think I had 5 foundations in hand. So if I hadn't drawn every revoke in my deck, he would have burned me for 20. But I drew other revokes in my deck. So I played every revoke in my deck on basically turn 3 of the game. And I was well, guess I can't rely on those anymore, but hey, at least I'm not dead. And that game ended up pretty tight, but I managed to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then game 2, his probably the biggest mistake I saw him make on the weekend. He used a princess parry on a negative stolen that I was basically just playing it to just get an enhanced step, maybe gain a little bit of life, just whatever. And he had 2 parries in his hand because he'd already parried a fatality, and I was just well, I'm gonna play this too because it sure doesn't do anything in my hand. And he parried that as well. And so eventually I was able to draw my last, the last fatality in my deck. Because that was the thing is he parried it, so there were 3 in the discard. And I drew my last one, and I think he checked his last parry. So at that point, I basically had free reign. And the weird thing is, so Vega and Desperation against Anakaris is gross. So what I would do is,
for who though? Because it sounds pretty good for Anakaris.
I mean,
yeah.
It's gross for Vega. So that was the thing is, once it got going, so I would first form for 12th Pharaoh to draw an extra card, and then I would play a fatality, and I would ready for the static, because basically Vega's static would reduce the speed of fatality by 1. So Anakaris readies again, and you could use I would basically use new shipmate or something and ready it, and then remove whatever I wanted. Fatality goes to momentum. Use a surveyor, pick it back up, play it again, re-ready Anakaris, ready the surveyor, and then just do that for each surveyor. So you could basically play fatality 5 or 6 times, or 5 to 7 times, I guess, depending on how many surveyors are out. Yeah. And that was just it's well, I was in a bad spot, but now I'm not. When you basically get 6 targeted removals or 7 targeted removals or whatever in 1 turn, and especially because by that point it was later in the game, that's
just pre-cycle. That's game.
Yeah.
That was a huge deal. He had a bunch of momentum, so if he had a way to dump it back in, he could have gotten some stuff back. But that was really the turning point. And then I think it still got kind of close, but I managed to win. And Yeah, I don't know. I guess against that Vega deck, and I know at one point I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, like he has like desperation gain of life. Like all he has to do is go up to 10, and then I was like, oh right, like he can't play any enhances during my attacks.
Yeah.
All right. Because I was just like, well, I'm not going to tell him, and then I'm like, oh well, I guess he can't. And I mean, maybe like I guess if he ends up like watching this, I would say that would be a good thing. Like, I don't know if he had the opportunity. Because I don't remember how low he ended up getting. But yeah, like if you could on any sort of like poke turn or whatever, like finish at like 10 vitality, like that drastically like reduces the ability for Anakaris to just like ready on every fatality.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know how much like self cut he had. So like I don't know if he could sort of go in and out at will, like especially at enhanced speed.
He had to have been playing that. Is it a 1 or a 0? The one that lets you cut for -1.
Oh yeah. Most trusted assassin.
Yeah. Okay, so right, like just between like that and like the life gain, like you can definitely just on your turn be like, I'll play an attack on whatever its difficulty is. I'll go to desperation. Like you can ready on defense, but I just want all my stuff to be cheap. And then on like whatever your last attack is, just be like, all right, and I'll go back up to 10. And now like, you can do what you want, but you don't get a million free activations. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I got that. Field lost to the reptile deck.
Unlucky.
Hey, I mean, actually, I gotta say, like that reptile deck was not that bad.
Well, no, I meant more for because I'm sure if he went to finals against you, like he's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
And so so like he hadn't played against it either. I don't think I've ever played Anthony Hall before. He actually, he's another one of the legendary wolf guys that was there.
Yeah.
And
you're slaying all the
now the worst part is he has a Rochester shirt. So he had a Rochester CCG shirt on for teams at one
turncoat.
And
yes, he is.
Went over to the other side. What a monster.
Man.
Now, to be fair, if I wasn't such a jerk and felt like I could abide by the like morality clause or whatever, like who wouldn't want to just get like free reimbursement for like travel? And,
hey man, if Phil can do it, I think you could do it. If Phil can do it, you definitely can.
Phil has a minimal online presence.
Oh, that's also true. Yes, you are online way more than Phil is. That is true.
I mean, I'm just saying, between the two of us, one of us is a lot more banned from the official Tasco page.
Yeah,
so.
I guess so.
But that was before he was sponsored. He's turned over a new leaf.
He's a kinder, gentler. He's a kinder, gentler Phil Birch. Only in the internet.
And potentially in person. I mean, he worked Gen Con.
Oh, yes, he did. Yeah. See that'd be one reason to go to Gen Con, man. That'd be nuts. Go see Phil.
They like him. They're just like, please don't post that.
Yeah. What did he say? He called them a bunch of fucking monkeys for gorillas or some shit like that?
Yeah. A bunch of gorillas for printing Gateway Shuffle.
Yeah. That hasn't won anything yet, but still. Very funny. But yeah.
I mean, he's one of those guys that played back when Absurd Strength was a thing, though. So, everybody from that era was, like, instantly triggered by that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, oh my god.
Why would you do this again?
They had, like, the Arthur fist going. They were, like, shaking. They was like, oh.
You kids!
But, yeah, I guess, like, game one, I feel like I got, like, a little bit lucky on an early, like, so my sort of plan against Reptile was pretty much just build what I can turn one and hopefully block one attack and cross my fingers that he doesn't kill me.
Yeah.
And then basically like, turn two, be a little more reasonable and just kind of like gradually build up like a defense while still being able to block.
Because Swordfish is like your most important piece.
Yes. Yeah.
Because there comes a point where the game gets away from
I think I had a Swordfish and he just had like revokes and stuff. Like so like it wasn't quite as bad as like what I did to Will with like all 4 revokes, but like I'll tell you, man, like there was at least 1 or 2 games against Anthony where I was just like, all right, got this like clutch defensive E, and just like, another revoke, another revoke, and I'm just like, oh god. And I at one point I was just doing stuff where I'm like, I'm gonna play this and like assume that he has a revoke and like just know that at least he's gonna play a revoke if I play this E, and he did. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll have to get that swordfish back later, but. Cool. At least now I know that that's one less attack that I might have to block this turn.
Yeah.
Swordfish Surveyor is really low key broken too.
Mm-hmm.
Just like every turn, just get a free like skull barrier out of it.
Yeah,
that's pretty sweet.
But I guess like the big thing was he I think failed one he failed the digital manipulation and like had checked 2 of them. So he basically had 3 digital manipulations in his discard pile in like the first 2 or 3 turns. Yeah. So that was like an easy, just like, get rid of it. Like, don't want to see this anymore. Like, you know, that's certainly going to kill you if you have no cards in hand and just be like, oh, I mean, 10 damage, 10 damage, yeah. 10 damage. Or more for him. I mean, that was the thing too, is like he pretty quickly like caught on that like he wasn't going to use Reptiles E like with Abandon. He might use it if I was like already ready, or if you know, if there weren't like foundations that really mattered.
Mm-hmm.
But like as it got later in the game, like he was much less likely to sort of like pump the stats on his attacks, especially after like the first game. So yeah, I like first game. I think the big thing was getting out the reclaiming. Right? Isn't it?
Yeah, reclaiming what's ours.
Yeah, reclaiming what's ours. And like as soon as I had that on the field, like I was just sort of not worried anymore.
Yeah.
Like I guess it would still like I would only get really like one use out of it because I typically would go into a turn committed just from my turn. But it basically just meant that he couldn't put like any stats on anything because like that would be like one of the first things I'd ready. Mm-hmm. But even so, like the first discard, it basically just turns it into you cycle a card. So you just discard like the worst card in your hand, draw the top card of your deck, and gain some free life. Yeah. So like that card was fantastic in the matchup, and even more fantastic because like I could use it twice. And then outside of that, just like Templars and Nunchucks, like it really wasn't too bad. Like once you got into like turn 4.
I mean, banging him is also pretty high value in this matchup.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, I would do that, but bang is sort of an interesting thing because so if he goes and his first enhance is to make you discard a card, and then you go, okay, I'll also like play bang. I mean, I guess you save yourself some damage, but it's also one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to make you discard a card next, like on your like next attack, and God forbid it gets revoked. Holy shit!
Yeah,
because that happened. Yeah, that happened to me. I was like, I'll bang, and he's just like, I'll revoke. I was like, ooh, like it's about to get real ugly. That might have been the game I lost. I don't know, but that's the thing is I lost. So I won game 1. And game 2, I think so. Like I got kind of like a weird hand. So like after game 1, I basically wanted to mulligan for a hand that either had Reclaiming or 12th Pharaoh, because I thought that those were like the 2 cards that would give me kind of like the best ability to quickly like mitigate his discard ability. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like having a Nunchucks or something was good, but those were like the priorities. And so I ended up with a really like my first hand like had a bunch of foundations, but nothing like super worthwhile. And then like the second hand was like, you know, couple assets, like, you know, some action. Like it was just like a bad, like not a great hand. And I think like 2 foundations. So I built like I think a swordfish and like 2 foundations, and then like reviewed something, and like when I drew back up, it was still something where I had like 2 more foundations, and like nothing like particularly good, at least not, you know, not for the matchup for sure. And so I kind of had this weird thing where like for a couple turns, like he got to sculpt a good attack hand, and I was kind of stuck at about 5 or 6 foundations that weren't terribly relevant. And so when he finally did like go in, he just had like, I mean, he had like pretty good, like decent attacks. I think he played some of the stuff that was like bigger, like base stats. So like he had like whip assault as well, and some of these things just didn't really need to get like pumped. So he did a bunch of damage, and I had something where I had some stuff that got like revoked, and I just took a big hit, and then like later he played. I think I ended up down around like 4. Oh, that's what it was. I had a Last of His Kind. So I was like mitigating like a decent amount of damage with that because I just couldn't block anything. So it's like I'd lose 2 to give it -4. And I mean that's good, but it's like that's still gonna kill you eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up down around like 4, and I think he played 2 of whatever the reptile. It's like I know it was 5 speed mid, like 4 damage. It might have been Force Ball. And I blocked the first one, and then like the second one was coming in, and I was like, I knew that he had like I think 2 more attacks because he had shown them to me to discard, and I basically had to like I didn't want to use the swordfish on that because I wanted to be able to use it on one of the last attacks because like I think he had like a whip assault and momentum, so I was gonna have to discard another card anyway. And it ended up like I did something, he passed, and I was like, oh crap.
Well,
and then and then it's like, well, it's 5 speed. I have a card in my pool. I don't have like a great block, so it's like on a 9, and I'm like, well, I have some 6s, and oh no, that's not all right. So he ended up taking game 2. And then, like, game 3, like, I finally got to go first, which is also, like, another huge bonus. Because, like, even if I don't have, like, a great opening build, it's, like, I still get 2 chances to do it. It's, like, basically then instead of, like, I hope I don't die on, like, turn 2, it's more like, I hope I don't die on, like, turn 3. Like...
The best is when you go first, you get to build 6 pass.
I mean, I did not do that. I'm pretty sure I only built 2. But that was another thing where I think maybe in, like, the second, in, like, on my second turn, I got like the Reclaiming or a 12th Pharaoh or something like that, and I was just able to kind of go like, all right, like, I don't have a ton of foundations, but I have good foundations, and that sort of made all the difference. And that was the other thing. So he had Faithful Monster because he was on Void, and he also had the Reptile one, which is like a Deadlock commit, and you discard a card. So I found that I often was just best off kind of like sitting right at like 10 foundations and just making them like high value foundations.
Yeah, I watched your game 3 too.
And basically like what I would like, one of the biggest things so I cut Immortal to 3 and left 8k at 4, and I would definitely reverse that because the ability for Immortal Knowledge to destroy itself and so that you can basically build something that's better is definitely not to be undervalued.
That's fair. I mean, I played both at 4, but
I mean, I was more just like looking at something to get in a whatever that low the one yes, and that was what I went with because I wanted to have like some control over my like foundations to basically get back below Deadlock if I wanted to. And that was one thing I'd try to do a little more of, but I just don't know where you really get it. You basically have like Kensuke and like Haunted by Loss, and I think that's about it. And then you just kind of like play things that destroy themselves.
I mean, I think you just play more Haunted by Loss, honestly.
Yeah. So,
being able to build extra 12 Pharaohs and blow them up later is pretty decent value too.
That's true. Yeah, I know, like, that was sort of the thing, is I always get, like, that first 12th Pharaoh out, and then I'd draw one, I'd be like, I guess I'll just discard this for a card at a later date, or against Reptiles, just like, well, I guess I don't want the first card.
It used to be really good back when this deck had Dashed Hopes.
Yeah.
You could play Dashed Hopes, and that would let you drop Mushroom Experimentation to play, and then having the extra 6 checks basically turned that into a reset.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure, I knew, like, because I played it when it did have, like, the Mushroom Experiment in there, And so I know, like, right, like looking at that and being like the 6 check and be like, man, it sure would be nice if Mushroom Experiment was still back in here. But
I tried playing it, but it just you can't dual symbol it efficiently. It's like you end up with a lot of hands where you're stuck with it in your hand, and it's like it feels bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had one where the only high block I had was a bang, and I blocked a high attack, and I was just like, well, I have a Templar and a bang in here, and nothing with air in my hand, so really hope this person doesn't just play like a bomb attack, but luckily they didn't.
I've done that too.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of it. I guess anyone who was watching the stream, Anthony did shake my hand afterwards.
I was going to ask about that too, because
there were some people that were giving him like, oh, I can't believe, like, you just, and it's like, come on, guys. I mean, it might have been a little bit, I might have gone in a little early. I mean, I'm sure. I had a lot of opponents
Discord,
on the
weekend.
Right? Yeah, I had a lot of opponents on the weekend that were not terribly pleased at the ends of our games. And I know also, like, I definitely was playing like a bit sloppy on the weekend, just in terms of my like sequencing, and I did get like a warning for it, and I think actually on like the last fatality I played, I almost like missed I like basically missed the check, and someone said like you need to make a check, and I had like that was what I had previously gotten a warning for, so like I think if Shane had really wanted to, like, he could have DQ'd me, and he didn't, so I guess make of that what you will. But, right, I basically, like, played that, made my check, and just went, okay, like, I'll pass. And that was literally the last card that was played in the game. Because he drew up, cycled, and had, like, one card left in his deck. So, didn't really change any outcomes, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess it completely changed the outcome, depending. I guess like that would
depends on how spiteful he wants to be towards you.
I guess that would sort of be so one of my recommendations, I guess, while playing it is like be more deliberate than I was. It was sort of a weird feeling, I guess, like playing it, because it's very much like a solitaire deck where when you're doing your thing, like they just sit there and go, like there's no decisions for them to make. Like they can't play like they can play like responses if they have them. But once that's over, it's like no enhances, not a lot to do on block. You can't play responses you can't play any responses during the attack. So like, once you start playing enhances, like they can't do anything about that. On block effects, they can't do anything about that. Mm-hmm. Like it's safe, so they can't reversal it. Like, especially now that they changed safe so that once it leaves your card pool, the safe state like carries on. Like it sort of like triggers on block in addition to all it's in the card pool. So yeah, I mean, it definitely leads to some like.
I had a lot of people. I had a lot of people that weekend try to play Quest for Vengeance on me whenever I played Fatality, and I had just like no.
Oh, is that the one where when they block with it, you discard?
Yeah. The substitution.
And I guess like so what I was trying to do is, especially like once you start playing Fatality multiple times a turn. Well, because the thing is too is that then you have to be like, oh, can I see your discard, and like let me see which thing I want to remove.
Did you just hold discard piles in your hand all weekend?
I would give it back every time, but it also was awkward where I'd be like, okay, well, there's 3 of this in here. Like, should I just put them on the table, or like should I tell them to take them out? Like, I don't know. It's sort of I guess like a bit of a grimy feeling of just like, hey, give me your cards, like. Here.
So my process with this was like I would if I was ready to start doing fatality stuff before I start my turn, I would ask to see their discard pile. I would take account of what attacks they had in their deck, because I would never fatality something that had less than 2 copies unless it was kind of getting down to the end of the game. Mm-hmm. So I would always try to work towards something that had 2 copies or more. So I would kind of take note of like the attack names that I was going to hit with fatality, because like I would plan out how many times I was going to play it.
Okay.
And so like, all right, I'm going to fatality this, I'm going to fatality this, and then I would give them back their discard pile. I would fatality out, and I would let them. I wouldn't try to remove the cards physically for them while I was doing that. But if I was playing, but then like if I had manipulative out and I was just like, can I see your discard pile for manipulative since you're in deadlock? I would be like, look through their discard pile and be like, all right, I'm going to grab these 3 out and be like, I'm going to manipulative for these 3 and then give them back their discard pile.
Yeah, I mean, that would definitely, like, I almost wish I had like, some more kind of, like, practice with it just for that. Because that was honestly, like, what felt like the worst. Like, the worst feeling of playing the deck is just sort of, like, the awkwardness of just, like, hey, can I, like, see your discard pile again to take more stuff out? And...
Well, I mean, that's good practice, and that's something that I think a lot of people should be doing more often, is you should be constantly, like, between turns looking at your opponent's discard pile, trying to figure out what, like, the attack zones that you're going to hit on, what your threats are that you need to worry about. And that's something that not a lot of people do.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess, like, that's the thing is, like, I just, like, wasn't, like, on it. So, like, I'd, like, look through it and be like, I want to get this, rid of this, and I'd sort of have an idea of, like, what the next one was, but, like, like, the turns where I played it, like, 3 or 4 times, like, I didn't, like, have a plan necessarily of, like, I'm going to get this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And then, like, sometimes with, like, if you have fear of women also, then, like, the composition of it, like, changes during the thing. So you're like, oh, well, this wasn't an option before, but now that that's in there, like, I'm going to do that. Or if you ended up, like, at a point where they didn't have any attacks. So you'd just be like, okay, well, what foundations are in here at 4x? What foundations are in here at 3x? And, like, I don't know. It's just, any way you shake it, like, I mean, your process...
For foundations, if I was hitting foundations with Fatality, I'd usually just say the top card of their discard pile. Like, it didn't matter at that point.
I got you.
If they have no attacks left, I don't care what they're removing, because eventually it's all gone. Like, removing like 1 or 2 extra cards on one Fatality is not going to swing the game significantly enough for me to care.
I got you.
Like, it might give them an extra control check or something, but, like, by the time you're hitting foundations with Fatality, you've already probably removed upwards of 15 attacks anyways, or have seen fit, like, 12 to 15 attacks. So it's like, how many attacks are you really expecting to get hit by at that point in the game?
I just find it to be hilarious. That's all. Just, I don't know.
The name of the game, like the name of the game with this deck is you have it. Like, if the deck runs the way it's supposed to run, you have 1 cycle to kill it.
Yeah.
If you don't kill it before you cycle, it is very unlikely for you to kill it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there were times for sure too where, like, the person, like, would cycle, and, like, maybe I'd gotten, like, the Fatality going late, or especially against, like, the Fae player, like, when he actually had, like, the good and evils, like, frequently, and then they like cycle and they hit, like, 4 attacks in the cycle, and you're just like, oh, like, nice. It's like you don't want to be hitting attacks on the cycle, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, when I played the deck in Edmonton, generally, like, when we got to cycle, it's like they're down to 4 or 5 attacks or less anyways, and it's just like they're gonna flip 10 and hit, like, 1 attack, and you're like, doesn't really change anything. Like, I know you've got this many attacks plus, like, maybe 2 in your hand, right? Yeah. So it's like you're counting cards at that point. You're like, I have to block 6 attacks to win the game.
Yeah,
problem. It's very, like, you look at it like it's very interactive. All the interaction is done on your opponent's turn.
Yeah,
your opponent has all the interaction in the world to try and kill you. It's like all the, like, he's in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You're just putting it, like, all this deck is doing is putting him on a clock.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, like, I guess that was sort of the thing, is, like, that's what led to, like, some of my sloppiness too, of, like, like, either, like, the warning I got of, like, not making checks, just because it's like, it's a 0 diff attack. Like, there's nothing else in my, like, it's sort of one of those things, like, it's a given. Like,
you're not going to fail it.
Like, I can't fail it. And so it's more like, I just wanted to get through all of that, like, as quick as possible to basically, like, give them their turn back.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would just probably, like, go too quick of, like, maybe not making the check, or I'd be like, okay, like, the R, and then, like, what am I going to ready? And, so there was too much of that on my part of just, like, being kind of, like, sloppy. And that definitely, I would say, like, increased the annoyance, I guess, of my opponents, of just being like, I'm losing, and I'm also, like, this guy's just, like, playing like a fucking animal. I'm like, I mean, I frequently get that feeling when I play against, like, Thomas Gordon, so.
Yeah,
can sympathize.
You don't need to play Anakaris into Thomas Gordon for that feeling.
No, you don't.
But yeah, I would just say, like, you know, if you do want to play it, like,
yeah,
try, like Devon said, like, figure out, like, sort of a process that, like, your opponent's good with, that where you can just, like, do it in, like, a quick but also, like, effective manner, so that you're not wasting a bunch of time, like, doing sort of, like, figuring out, like, well, what am I going to remove? Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, and don't forget to make your control checks. Even though it's a 0 to...
I recommend everybody to build this deck and to play it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say
that because teach you better. It's going to make you better at following interactions and analyzing the board state at all times.
And it's something, too, where... I mean, I would say build it, even if it's proxied, because if you run into it, you want to be familiar with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had multiple people tell me that they were planning to run 2 or 3 versions of this deck in teams for U.S. Nationals.
Oh, I've already talked to my team about it. It's like, we're gonna run into this because
you will see this deck in teams.
Yeah, you will. This is a great.
If it's even
deck.
remotely playable.
Yeah.
Because it's this. I mean, because there's other versions too. I mean, there's like the Anakaris version. There's like a Keith Disbro version, I'm sure. Because he basically just gets Surveyor by flipping anything. I mean, you can't use it multiple times, but you know, it's
I would play this deck off of Spike 1.
Yeah.
I feel like Spike 1's perfectly reasonable to play this deck off of. Plus, you get both abilities on Swordfish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could probably do like Punchy as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Quanchy.
Actually, yeah, I guess with Spike, like being able to ready, he can ready the Surveyors with Swordfish. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Great.
And I mean, just like you have less you can put less priority on your Dust in the Wind and your Kensuke Dojo. Just to because you have that built in on your character. You have,
and I mean, and he can run something like he could run like Gambler or whatever too, which gives him like a lot of control over like Deadlock.
Yeah.
So
Psycho Soldier basically.
Yeah. Yep.
With a 4 check.
So now that we're getting into the latter part of the conversation, so what you guys were mentioning certain decks that may be able to stand up to this. I know the Liu Kang beat you in Swiss. And Kevin beat you with Sub-Zero, or he beat me with, well, we were going into game 3. It was like 11 p.m. Yeah, that's right.
And we were like, look, like we got to drive back. It's like a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
So we rolled off, and then basically we rolled off for the right to forfeit finals, basically, so we can. It is what it is.
Yeah. No, I understand.
But there's a couple of different approaches you can take to beating this deck. First thing you can do is just blow it out on turn 2. That is when the deck is at its weakest. If you just get a good hand on turn 2, you can slap him in the nuts and be on your way. Like you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
He's like a little more resilient. Like he's got good vitality. He's got good hand control. Plays a bunch of defensive stuff. But at the end of the day, if you just see the right cards, you can kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you need a scaling game plan. You need to have attacks that get better as the game progresses. A good example of this would be Sub-Zero with his Frost Hammer, which is what killed me in semifinals.
Yeah.
Frost Hammer hitting you for 17 damage when your board's tapped out is, that'll kill you. Like, just get MC hammered on, you're done. Like, it's over. But that's not something that you're going to see in a lot of decks.
Yeah.
Some decks are capable of that. Like even some of the characters you would expect would be good at that, like Spike. This deck is awesome into Spike 1. Like you're laughing at Spike because he's going to give you all the activations you want.
Yeah.
Realistically, the most common deck I can see this deck struggling with is you want decks that are going to put speed on attacks without using the word speed.
Oh, sure.
So
like
you
Sniper Joe.
You want your Sniper Joe. You want your Liu Kang. You want your Lily. You want your, whoever you want.
Secret attack,
let the card pool. Let the card pool hack the checks.
Yeah.
Makes things harder to block without using the word speed.
Sure.
Even just using cards with good base stats.
Yep.
Not having to pump things and still have a significant threat is not easy for this deck to deal with because he's relying on you having to pump things to some extent so that he can get more value out of his defensive foundations. Like you want your Dust in the Winds back. You want your you want your survivalist back.
Yeah.
You want your you want your damage reduction. You want your rhythmic fighting styles. You want your all this stuff. He wants all of it back. And if you don't give him any of it back, you're in a really good spot to kill him. Because then he's going to struggle.
I would say too, even just strong kind of foundation control. Because this thing is, if you can remove if you can get rid of rhythmics, you might be able to throw him to death.
I also think you use a rhythmic a lot more aggressively than I do in this deck. I don't even think if I'm not playing against a really slow throw deck, I don't even think about using rhythmic until turn 4.
I gotcha.
I'll just use it to pass checks.
I would use it sometimes just because it was something where I'm might as well just get started on this. I guess that might have just been might have been more of a choice, but.
I mean, if it's a throw deck, sure, I'll use rhythmic whenever I can because they're slow.
Yeah,
I had to play against Witzel in top 8 with this deck. I played rhythmic turn 1, and he's just he tried to play through basically threw more turns out. He didn't hit me with a single attack. He's just nah, I'm done, man. I'm going to take a nap. You go have fun in top 4.
But yeah, I guess rhythmics and surveyors are probably the 2 biggest things I feel will prolong your game. Because
I think it's a mistake.
I'm going to cut over the deck list, so if you guys want to talk about certain cards, we can do that too. So,
I think it's a mistake to target surveyor actually.
Okay.
Because it's not going to you have your clock is set. If you just assume that you're going to lose the game if you cycle, trying to attack what he's using to cause that game state is reducing your ability to kill him.
Okay.
So I think it's perfectly fine if you have control over the rest of the board to do that.
I got you. So you're saying stuff like dust, survivalist, things like that.
Hit dust, hit survivalist, hit avenged, hit swordfish, hit dojo, hit all the stuff that's making him allowing him to block you. Because blocking is his first line of defense, and he's very good at it.
Right.
If you're running discard strategies, you should be playing what is it, the Reptile Foundation Venomous, the new caught red-handed, I think. Yeah, play your Venomous, play revoke the card draw, play Novitiate, play just lock down the card draw, kill his hand, and then kill him through and then you're just counting numbers through the damage reduction. What do you care if if Anakaris is going to ready and gain a vitality every time you attack him? That's just -1 damage. If you can count to 40, what does -1 damage matter?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different lines of play that can kill this deck. And the biggest problem is that I don't think a lot of people really think about it beforehand. They're just gonna they're gonna play their game and then kind of 3 or 4 turns into the game realize their plan isn't working. And at that point, it's very difficult to pivot into the correct game plan because you've already lost over half of your deck.
Right.
And then in Swiss rounds, that's devastating because you might not have a chance to win game 2.
Yeah, I mean, my tops matches, especially, Faye was interesting, just because he had the,
he was main decking the answers.
Right, he had good and evil, and the other thing he did a lot, especially in tops, and especially in game 2. I don't know if he had more stuff he brought in or what, but he was using a ton of folktale storyteller and whatever the other one is that shuffles 3 cards in, and he would just whatever opportunity would just be putting more of his attacks back in his deck.
That's good too. That's a pretty good strategy, honestly.
And he definitely, he sort of had I guess some game, if you will, but I feel maybe his attacks just weren't quite up to par to what they needed to be.
That's a good possibility, actually.
Yeah, and
this deck is also going to punish you if your attack, if your aggression isn't efficient. This deck is just going to laugh. There's a big difference. I played a Sub-Zero in rounds, and I played Kevin's Sub-Zero in semis. And the difference in those 2 decks was staggering because of the amount of attacks that, the one I played in rounds was basically the Sub-Zero starter deck. And then Kevin's Sub-Zero was definitely, took a very calculated approach to, okay, these attacks are not efficient. I'm going to replace them with better attacks. Like your Death Valley face plants, I think that was the big one, was Death Valley face plant. Playing around Deep Freeze a lot better, playing around Frost Hammer a lot better. But I don't, Frost Barrier is going to deal 3 damage. No, I'll just take it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Right. The deck punishes you very heavily if your deck sits on Spragio and Skull Barrier blocks.
Because they don't do anything. Yeah.
No, they don't do anything. Draw you can't. You're not even going to get to play Spragio as a reversal.
Yeah.
It's just a 2 damage. It's a 2 damage attack. It's 2 damage action card. No, I might even reduce it to 0 and just laugh at you.
Yeah. Was it New Crewmate or whatever? That card's sweet.
Yeah, New Shipmate.
New Shipmate.
-2 damage, gain 1 vitality.
Yeah.
When they spoiled that card, I'm like, this card's so cool. I like this card. That's a really solid 2/5. Or is it 2/5?
It's a 2/5.
It's got a block on it.
It's got a high block.
It has +2 high on it. Yeah.
You can play 2 of these in a deck. It's fine.
I mean, it's unique, but
yeah. So you see the other one. It's that's fine. It's a high block. I'm okay with that. Lots of good attacks hit you high.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking back, I guess I lost 2 games on the weekend. I felt like that's the funny part is I could have sworn that I lost one of the games to Vega, and I guess I didn't. But those felt like I could have for sure. Honestly, if Vega didn't have the static that modified speed, I think he would have a much, much better matchup. It was really, if more than anything, it was just the fact that against Vega, I knew that I would get a free ready on every single attack card that got played once he went to Desperation. And he would sort of do that willingly just because he that sort of made all his attacks better because he was running just between From Hell and Coffee Samba and stuff like that. You don't want to be playing those at their printed difficulties.
Yeah.
and obviously the Desperation E on Glaive Toss is huge. But yeah, I easily felt like I could have lost to that deck. And especially if he had the Spaceland so that I wasn't able to loop fatalities and had to
you know what would have been good for that deck is if he had a Molina in his sideboard or Scorpion or something and just switch to somebody who's not going to statically pump. Molina's probably the best one. Sideboard Molina is very good against this deck as well. She doesn't really have a whole bunch of stuff that readies Anakaris, and all of her abilities are very good.
I can see that.
There's a lot of characters who are really decently placed against Anakaris to mess him up.
Well, because some of that stuff too is you have to realize as well is I think I dealt damage 2 or 3 times, which is mostly when I had a whatever, where I would have 2 hand cannons or something, and I was just well, I'll just play one of these and get some cards out of my hands. And it's actually pretty funny too, because it has the thing where you can discard a card to ready a foundation. So there were times where I would just had a 12 Pharaoh and drawn an extra card, and I would just pitch some non-block to ready a foundation that I had used on my either a Surveyor to get something else back or a new crewmate, new shipmate or something like that. Just sort of well, free activation, pitch this non-block. You don't do that against somebody that's going to be ripping up your hand, but it's just and then that makes it safe as well. So
so no reversals. We're coming up on 2 hours, roughly. We're at hour 47, so I don't know if you want to...
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, we're see.
Yeah, we killed it.
Oh, yeah. Rob loves to talk.
Only started to scratch the surface, too, right?
Oh, yeah. Is there anything else you want to try to fit in the next 15 minutes before we close at all about the deck? I know
how do we improve the deck?
Yeah, that's one thing I would like to know because I would... Could you...
As I've been thinking about it.
Could you cut?
There's definitely a card I've been wanting to add to the deck that I haven't really fully decided where it slots in. I don't have any intention of playing the deck again, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah.
because like I'm not going to Nats. He's going to be rotated by the time I'm even looking at going to a new event.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully.
Because it's two more sets.
I mean, from what I tell, we're probably getting a set like either right before or right after Nationals.
Yeah,
and then we're probably getting one right before or right after Worlds. And he'll be gone.
Yeah.
But one card that I think could really be good in this deck that I don't really know where to put it in, or maybe I just slap four of them on top. I want to add Pride of the Tribe.
Okay.
Give it some foundation control because he can block a lot of attacks, and he can ready them.
Mm-hmm.
And just like make your opponent flip cards. It's even better if your opponent's playing a lot of flips as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sort of one of my things. I felt like I was like, man, I have no way to deal with like problem foundations. Like that would definitely be a pretty decent one.
I feel a lot better about playing that than I would feel playing Hunt in this deck.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of being stuck with Hunt in my hand without Fatality.
No, that's true. And it has a nice block, so you could change it with like rescue mission and then just block.
Yeah,
super
it's
easy.
+1 mid.
Yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. Those old T-Hawk foundations, boys. He may be trash, but T-Hawk could help you out.
Yeah, some of the T-Hawk foundations are really good.
And the thing is too is like there are definitely people that I played that like really didn't want to go to Deadlock when I would get like 2 or 3 copies of like Manipulative out and they just go like, oh, because I mean, if you start talking about removing like 9 cards from like the discard pile every
that's
turn,
the thing though, is like that's part of having a really bad mindset to approaching the deck.
Mm-hmm.
The correct mindset to playing against Anakaris is you just have to disrespect the hell out of it. In all honesty, you just have to play like you have to play like a total jerk against it, because he's gonna punish you for playing fair in UFS. Making plays that you should be playing against other decks, like holding your right blocks and not like building the correct number of cards every turn, and it's just like you just have to throw all that out the window and just be like, no, you just play like a total asshole into him. Just like build out, like just play your entire hand out every turn. What's he gonna do about it? He's not gonna do anything.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, it's kind of like you take the Heidi mindset against it, where you just play your hand out, and then you just move on.
Like he's. I played one of the decks locally. We have a Sakura deck here, and he just like every single turn, once he hit 10 foundation, was just play 5 attacks, discard 5 cards from his hand, and just like he's like he didn't care. Like, what am I gonna? He's like looping spiders and dragons on me, Surveyor and Sakura's Hadoken, and this is really hilarious. It's just like this is the right line of play to play against this deck. Like, you just have to disrespect it. Which would be funny if it like sided in like. I thought it'd be really funny if you put 4 Cannonade in the sideboard, and just like if your opponent decides to disrespect the hell out of you like that, you just bop them for 28 with Cannonade.
That would be awesome.
Like that's like the next level. Like that's like you're climbing up your meta. You're climbing up your meta strategy at that point.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, I'm gonna stop holding cards in my hand if he's not gonna punish me for it. And it's just like I'm gonna play an instant kill punish because people start doing
that. That's awesome. Like to see that would be great. I would love to see that.
I guess if you had enough 6 checks, you could just do a Soul Ball, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. If they're not gonna hold. If they're not going to,
it's like it pumps for like every 6 check or something.
Oh, you mean Soul Charge?
I don't know.
Yeah,
one of the internet cards. Yeah.
You know exactly what I mean, guys.
Yeah.
Soul Charge.
That Ermac card.
There's no universe where you have 26 checks in your discard.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
No.
The powerful.
Like
that's wait. That one has powerful, right?
Yeah.
It's got powerful too.
So you just have all your fatalities, and you can get like 2 damage each. Nice.
No,
I mean, I had another idea for this deck. Like, if they decide to try to touch cards out of it, and like make stop the loop, like you can build this off all and just play like a really like asshole wall deck where you just play like 4 Shogun Prince and Hanya, and just like never let them pass any attacks again.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's okay. So let's now that you touched on that. Do you? I know it's only been one event, but do you think that if this becomes like the troll deck and people win with this more and more, and people complain about it, do you think they won't touch fatality? They won't touch that.
I mean,
that's a problem. That's a problem. It's like they dug themselves into their hole with fatality.
Yeah,
it's like it's absurd. It would be absurd to ban that card right now.
No, they wouldn't. There's no way they could. Yeah.
I don't like if you look at this deck like a problem deck. Like there's so many. Like this is just one version of the deck. There are other symbols that can play this deck.
Yeah.
There's a whole roster of other characters that can field this deck just fine.
Mm-hmm.
This was just the iteration that I thought was the funniest, in all honesty.
It's the greatest. Yes.
You can play it off all and play Merciless Master and loop Fatality. You can play you could probably just play Evil and do it too.
Yeah.
It really comes down to what symbol you can defend yourself with most efficiently.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that was for me, that was life with off symbol bang.
Yeah.
Which it was just the most efficient way to not die, as far as I could tell. But there's certainly like I have a file on my computer somewhere where it was just like I had a whole list of like different combinations of symbols to make this deck work, because it's never a one symbol deck. Yeah. This is a multi symbol deck.
Mm-hmm.
Different combinations of symbols to achieve the different foundation combinations that I want to make this deck work. Mm-hmm. Like this is such a it's like fatality. Like part of the problem with fatality is that having triple infinity. In all honesty, you can play it in any deck. Yeah. It is so open ended, and there's just such a limitless amount of ways you can play this card. That
I mean that was sort of one of my things. Is like I wish actually for all of the triple infinity stuff, I wish that it had been 2 set symbols and then infinity. And like it would sort of be one of those things where like you could sort of have like the symbols that were like flavor, and then you could still have like 1 infinity so that like anybody can play it, but it's like sort of has like its home, if you will, with like so like fatality maybe would be like death and evil and then like infinity or something.
Test your might be like good in life or something.
Or you know, maybe it's all because it like draws a bunch of cards. But like stuff like that. I mean, you know, like stage kill, maybe you would share like 2 symbols with the pit. You know, who knows? Yeah. But like, I feel like just the triple infinity is something where like a single, like I feel like triple infinity from a design, it's like you probably could have accomplished that with just a single infinity, and then having like the triple just opens it up for like,
or even not putting infinity on it at all.
Yeah.
Because like
it's definitely possible too.
You need to test this in so many different variations of decks. On triple infinity to be like, is this broken in anything?
Yeah.
And I feel like once you slap triple infinity on it, you just got to be like, I hope it's not.
Yeah.
You know. And you know, it's, you know, like I don't know how you balance around that, or like I don't think you can balance around that. You just kind of have to throw it out there and be like, I hope it's not broken.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see anything. Like we don't see anything else with like triple infinity like this.
Yeah, I don't think we will.
But I guess we'll see.
I mean, it's like it's fitting to the card. Like you want to make fatality, and obviously everybody in Mortal Kombat plays fatalities.
Yeah,
like you know they all have fatalities, so like it makes sense from a thematic standpoint. But just like making the card universally so like it's part of the problem with what I have with the I really don't like this line of stuff that is just not interactable. Like this is just the latest one. Like there have been plenty others before it that are very difficult or impossible to interact with. Even Shinnok, I fully expect Shinnok to be a problem at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing holding him back right now is just that his symbols suck.
Yeah.
Like for being a 6-hand size weird aggro speed character. Like as soon as like if he gets tools to be good, like he's going to be absolutely obnoxious.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of like right now, it's like Jiffany Jamber. Like they put out Jiffany Jamber, and it's like, well, nobody's playing it, so it's obviously not a problem. And then it wins 2 majors in a row, and you're like, well, I guess it was a problem. Like,
exactly.
What do you do?
Yeah. But But yeah, all right. So there you go, kids. I think that's a comprehensive 2-hour breakdown, give or take edits. So, but yeah, congrats, Rob. Congrats, Devon.
Thanks.
It's kind of like you're living vicariously
it's
through.
all Rob. Like,
yeah. Yeah,
he's 2 for 2 with he's 2 for 2 with taking the last.
I forgot about that. So like that was as we were when we were getting ready to go down. I told Scott, I was like, we should like take our Rochester shirts, right? Because like we had played on teams with Kevin at Worlds, not last year but the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was such a letdown. Like we kind of went like didn't play any of like the meta decks at all. Like that was one of those ones like a lot of Zoes, some like the Pharaoh Man, like Yamato Man. We did have Yamato Man, but Scott was playing him on Chaos and it was like completely just like staging area control. It was awesome. He didn't want to play it in singles because he's like, there's going to be like 15 like all like wheel and steel Yamatos, and I just don't want to like get diversified because somebody ran like super hot and I got like 2 losses or something. But yeah, so we Swiss champed with Ulrich, Gutsman, and Yamato on Chaos and felt awesome. And then we ran into some people that we played in Swiss who I think they eventually lost in finals and like could not run it back and like we just went.
I
love
like, that Ulrich deck.
It'd be like super, we were like, it'd be like super cool if we topped, and then we like Swiss champ, and we're like, well, I guess it'd be super cool if we won. But yeah, so we had these like Rochester shirts, and now that like Legendary Wolf is doing their sort of like sponsored stuff, and I think they have, like a bunch. I think maybe all of their like East Coast people are in this Virginia store.
Except for Anthony.
Like
Anthony's out of Florida.
Okay, is he East or is he South?
He's Southeast. He's in Florida.
Okay. I mean, right, but I don't know. Like, I know they had like there were like 4 or 5 like divisions.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't know the actual division
things. Will Howard, Les Hubbard, and I think Dave. He was like the Liu Kang that got diversified. So actually, they all did great. So kudos to them.
I'm not gonna lie. I hate all those mats. Every single one of them. I hate them. Like, they're just so fucking dorky, man. Really?
But yeah, so we were just like, well, we'll just wear our like orange shirts and just be trolls. And
rep the OG.
Yeah, so Scott and I both field top. So like we were actually all top 4. And then I think both of them got knocked out by the reptile. Actually that's something else too. Like I meant to say this earlier on. I was talking to Anthony Hall. I think he said this is like the first event that he's topped. And like, I know Dave Wagner was sort of giving him props on the Discord, said that he's been grinding a ton. I know he's in Florida, but he's been going to some of the tournaments, I guess, in Atlanta.
Yeah, somebody was
in like Mississippi.
Yeah, he's been traveling.
I don't know if it was Dave. I think it was somebody was though.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like definitely like kudos to him. His reptile deck was like pretty cool. Like, I know that we've sort of like given it given Reptile like a hard time from the get go, just between like Tim Keefe and Toys, like just
Reptile deserves it.
Yeah. But
aggro garbage.
But yeah, I mean it was cool. The only thing was like maybe like he ran like a bunch of the slide, and I don't think that's like a great card. But I mean, Face of a Monster and Digital Manipulations are both great choices that that require a little more thinking than just insert reptile cards like half deck. So that was cool. But I guess to continue. So we packed those, and I realized I was like, the last event where I wore a Rochester shirt was also an event where I played a deck that Devon had recently played in Vega. Well, I guess we'll see if I can repeat the entire process. So that was the other thing too, is so I didn't wear my Rochester shirt for tops in that because I wore it for Swiss, and I was like, so when I did this, I was like, well, I can't wear the shirt for tops now, right? I was like, that's not what I did last time. I gotta stick to it. So yeah, that was good. It was good wearing the Rochester shirt. It was super good. I played it on the old Random Punks mat.
Yeah, from Versus.
Versus.
Yes.
Prominently featuring Howard the Duck. So that was awesome.
You even had the troll mat out.
can't believe that I meant to do all this stuff at the beginning. So hopefully people watch the end. Huge shout out to Ryan Field. I always put the S on. When we were talking about the stream and like you're like, I mean they have some internet, but like they don't really have a setup. I think he actually like went to Walmart, bought a tripod.
Yeah, he did.
Bought a camera because he had his like computer with him, and basically bought a stream setup, streamed the like entire event, and then returned all the stuff to Walmart.
He did. Yep, he did.
So, absolute hero, Ryan Field.
That's awesome, actually. I like that.
So I guess part of that too, like, you know, I guess it's nice having like video of like the Anakaris as well. So like, I mean, I was on stream, I guess once in Swiss and then twice in Tops. So, you know, if anybody, like I've seen a lot of things of people just like, well, how does this deck win? Like, you know, it shouldn't be that good against like a decent aggro deck or blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can go watch like 3 matches of it and I think at least other than my match against Field, you know, I think that I probably played against 2 of the better decks in the event in that Reptile and definitely that Vega. I mean, I think that if Will hadn't run into me, I mean, Vega probably has a fine matchup against Reptile and Liu Kang. So, like, and especially like his thing, I mean, with some of his attacks, this thing is like Nero Fatica, it's like, that's cool. Princess Parry, like, I don't even have to pass it.
Yeah.
I'll just discard it. Like, so, I mean, I think he had like a really good deck. I hope some people like check his list out when it gets posted.
I want to check out all the lists, honestly.
Yeah. But don't look at Scott's. That thing's a monstrosity. I hope I hope he does something different. Stops playing like 80 card good jet. That's no. He just sees that alpha male and goes, I can play everything.
Yes, he can.
Oh, yeah, but don't do it.
Know, you say that, but that's probably one of the better decks against the Anakaris deck, actually.
Maybe. I don't know.
Like
I didn't have
80 card good jet with all of his own attacks and just like rip his hand to shreds and
I guess. Yeah, I mean some of that deadlock stuff on the jet attacks is disgusting.
Yeah, like if you field a full lineup of jet attacks against that Anakaris deck, you just tear it into your asshole. Like super easy.
Yeah, I guess like missile launcher and then like he has like 2 that are like super dumb. Like the one that's like just buries 2 of their foundations on the bottom of their deck.
Is that Hammerhead?
And then like the one where it's like you look at their hand and they can't play something.
Oh yeah, that one's like that one's nuts too. Yeah. He has 2 of them.
I definitely lost the game to that card in playtesting because he hit me when I had 3 Templars in my hand. I was like, I basically scooped right there. I'm like, you got me. This game's over.
That's hilarious.
But
you know, he's like flips his 4 emergency rations on my damage reduction, and then just
that was actually a pretty emergency rations is the one where when they play something they can't play it again, right?
Yeah.
The Fey guy had that, and that was not bad. Like he would flip it sometimes on he flipped it on like Rhythmic. He flipped it on because I don't think I had a lot of like resets and stuff, but like he flipped it on Surveyor one time when I had like 2 or 3 out and I was gonna start looping stuff, and I was just like, that's not bad. Like because it's the first time. You know, a lot of the cards like. Seems like it's like
want you to play
it like
2
or 3 times, and then you get something like something like Bebop Blues. Like, oh, after I play something 3 times, commit my character. Okay. Yeah. So
no, I feel like for what it does, like I feel like hitting it after the first one pretty fair, honestly. And it's really high quality.
And it's a great discard hate too, which is a thing that you should probably be considering right now as well. So
yeah, exactly.
It's not a bad card. So,
cool.
All right. I guess that's probably enough for today.
Yeah, that's enough because that's gonna be it's a 2-hour show. So there's no way I'm gonna be able to break this up either because there was just.
It's all right.
It's all right.
This is it'll be good. It'll be good for a drive home through rush hour or something.
That or someone can download it and listen to it on the way to the UK. You know.
Yeah.
It take up like half of your flight.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. There you go. All right.
See, that's how to give Tim an ulcer on the plane right there. Just like, oh my god, this deck. Just get air sick on the way.
All right, so Devon,
Tortoise, I need a second barf bag.
Devon, I want to say thanks for joining. You're welcome back anytime.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
this is fun. I love doing this.
It was a pleasure, Rob, as always. Congrats. Our show now has validity. It was valid, but because we both hopped in indie, but now it's even more valid.
Is this the validity you wanted, though?
I'll take it, man. I'm not going to turn any of it down. I'll take it. I'm Rob's butler now. If it looks a bit, I'll be the butler. I'll be the butler.
There you go. Now just go win team cardboard with them.
Yeah, now I need to. Yeah. All right. So good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Steps, right?
Yep, baby steps. All right, everyone. Good night.